First of all, I just wondered why you wanted to bring this true story to the big screen.
Well, for a couple of obvious reasons, you know, which is when I read the story of Tami, I was blown away by the resilience, the power of that woman, and then finding out that there are no real stories about women against nature. I think it was about time to tell a story of a real feminine hero, and the times have changed, and we all kind of have to look a little bit to ourselves. I've been in this business for a long time, and it's my first movie that has a female lead. So it was a new challenge, and I was driven by that. You know, I was excited about that, and then what I did I opened up the process, or allowed Shailene to be more involved, and because I needed a perspective of a woman in the room to make it as authentic and true as possible.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about that, Shailene Woodley's involvement before the cameras started rolling, and what kind of input she had.
Yeah, she came down to Fiji early, and we started working together. She went sailing in the day when I was, you know, scouting and planning and all that, and then she was training her sailing, and then in the afternoon we would sit and go through the script and work on the script and better it, I hope, you know, and find ways and make it as authentic as it could for her and for me, you know, what it created incredible trust and a great collaboration, which allowed us, once you were on the water, you don't have much time to stick around, you know, so we had already we knew what we were doing, what we wanted, and now it's just executing it, you know.
And in terms of the acting, what particularly impressed you about her performance in the film?
Well, I love the performance in the film. There is an emotional authenticity to her performance that I think is on another level, you know. And that's really what I loved about her as an actress, and I wanted to push even further. And there's no vanity. She allows us to, you know, show her body in all the kind of humiliating, you know, form it can be. You know, there was not any of that. You know, and I love that about Shailene, that she put herself out there. She does every underwater shot, you know, in the ocean. It's all shot there's nothing in a tank, you know. It's all under the boat. She's doing full scenes under a boat, you know, in the middle of the ocean, which is full of sharks, by the way.
I wondered that. I mean, we're used to seeing films where, you know, there is a certain shot from above and you think, oh dear, something's gonna come and get. And were you kind of playing with that a little bit, or not?
Well, I think always when you're in the ocean, you have that feeling, you know, and you always have this kind of like there might be something there, and because it's the unknown, which is great. But I didn't want to fake anything and bring in a shark, which didn't exist in the story. So I wanted to be closely on character and truthful and authentic, because it would be it's kind of tempting. Yeah, let's throw in a shark there, you know, because you need more excitement. But what you do when you do that, you lose excitement on the ongoing, because you create a fake one, and now you have to sustain it, and the story is not about that.
And much of the film is shot on the boat, set on the boat.
Yeah.
What was sort of exciting to you about that, and also maybe challenging?
Well, everything is challenging about shooting on water. I mean, most people say never do it again. I've done it a few times because I actually do like the water, and I like what the water brings to you, which is rawness in the people who are performing on the water. But it also gives you a real base, and it doesn't matter whether it's the water or mountain I'm shooting. I will take you through as much as I can without putting you in harm's way, and then augment it, add the layers on it, because then you're building from a real base of reality instead of once you start going away from it in the beginning. I think that's when you see the Hollywood kind of slickness and everyone well-combed hair, and you know, it just doesn't feel real, you know. And I think by going through it, and I always start the films by going through the worst, and then because then people have the experience inside of them when you have to do it more technically.
Yeah, what about that structure? Where did you feel that worked well? That structure of sort of, like you say, you showing us the worst at the beginning.
Well, what I really is about is that we as an audience are put inside of a boat that is going down, and waking up with a woman who is 1,500 miles away from any land, and we go from claustrophobia to agoraphobia in one shot, and we realize what kind of hopeless situation she is in, and she's shouting for some name we don't know who is, right? Unless we've seen trailers or read the story. So she's shouting, Richard, Richard, and now we go and we tell you a little bit who is Richard and how she met Richard. So you're learning how she got there and how the hell she's going to get out of there. So that I love about the story. You start in the middle of it and then you wrap around it and you tell the two stories are informing each other. For example, you see around the middle of the story how the real boat looked before it was trashed. So I think all these things, you're building a little puzzle for the audience, which is also makes it more coherent when you come to a certain part of the movie, which is about, you know, giving another layer of the story.
And you mentioned that brilliant shot towards the beginning that tells us so much, you know, going from, I think you say, claustrophobia to agoraphobia, or the other way. Tell us about working with Robert Richardson, the Oscar-winning cinematographer who you have on board, and what your kind of guiding principles were for him for the look of Adrift.
Well, we wanted to be very kind of close to the characters and feel a kind of authenticity, but we also wanted to create a cinema, you know, not a documentary, like a sweeping cinema. So we tried to choose shots that we could give the audience a little bit of this wow them a little bit with camera movements and build a couple of shots of them. And also, but never only to sweep, but also to put you in a perspective. Like that's, for me, is like pulling out there, just realizing her. You're inside of her, realizing how hopeless this situation she is in. And the same, like when the big storm shots, because we have seen this kind of in, like a big wave, you've seen in Perfect Storm, but the big wave is going to be a big wave. The reality was, it was 60 feet or something. And we tried to be honest with that, but by changing the perspective or staying in the shot, you stay more like you experience it with the characters, how it happens, instead of jumping out and seeing it from outside. So these are the things we're trying to do with those shots, and it's incredible to work with Bob. And Bob is he will never let go. He's one of the most toughest nails I ever, and he basically operates every shot in the movie. And he's just, I mean, the conditions he was working in, and he's a bit older than me, and you know, he never complained. He would hang himself outside of the boat or whatever needed to be done. He would go there, and it was a great experience.
Did you lose any equipment to the water?
A lot. Cranes, you know. I mean, he's a guy who wants to have his techno cranes and Oculus head, and you know, that is some reason that doesn't really go well with salty water, right?
I hope it was insured. Yeah. And tell us about the real life Tami, what her input was, and I believe she was on set for at least one of the days, was she?
Yeah, she came for around 2 weeks. I got to know her a bit before, and she was incredibly generous. It's a bit worrying sometimes we get the real people on set if it's going to make the actors feel like, you know, weird, and so you have to be careful about that. But she was very generous, and she loved the script already, you know, and was very much on with the way the story was told. I thought it was authentic to her emotions. So I think that was a good start. But then we hit it off really well, and she was sending me pictures how she made the sail, because I couldn't really understand how she managed to do that. So it's like, how lucky are you actually can have the real person telling you in details how she did certain things, so I could get deeper and deeper into the real. And I asked her very openly about her family and about her relationship with Richard, and we tried, and Shailene had some calls with her, and then she came on, and it was fantastic, and it's a big responsibility. You're putting someone's life on screen, and it's going to be defined in some way by that film, you know, and at the same time, I don't want to pull any punches. I also want to honor the real people and not make some false, you know, a picture of them.
And I know you're experienced as a sailor yourself. I just wondered how you think you would fare if you were in a similar situation to Tami found herself in.
I am not going to say I'm as strong as Tami, because that's incredible to be able. I'm not as good a navigator as he is either. But yeah, I've been in some situations where I've managed to pull myself out of, you know, in my life. But I'm still blown away by Tami. I think she is, you know, stronger than I am.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey